Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to be taking a look at this record, which is George Harrison's Living in the Material World album. So this was just recently reissued as part of like a remixed album and sort of like deluxe sort of box set. Now I haven't bought that, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of revisit the album because it's a record which I guess I've kind of like overlooked like in George's discography for like many years, and I thought that I would like give it like another listen and give like my thoughts like on it. So this is technically George Harrison's fourth solo studio album, but I think most people would consider this his second after All Things Must Pass. So it was released on the 30th of May in 1973 in the US and on the 22nd of June in the UK. So kind of like it came after George's hugely successful humanitarian concert, the Concert for Bangladesh, in August of 1971. However, Harrison didn't rush into making an album sort of following this concert. Instead, he devoted his time to essentially the fallout from like the Bangladesh concert, where a lot of the money that had been raised was finding difficulty actually getting to the people like in need. So various contractual matters, the likes of like Alan Klein getting like involved, but also governments with kind of like different taxes and stuff. He was very much obsessing over making sure that like the money raised like actually got to the people like who like it was like intended for. He also spent like his time like around this era as well and producing for other artists, including the likes of Cilla Black and his friends Ravi Shankar, Gary Wright, and of course Ringo. It was also during this time period, like the tail end of 1971 going into 1972, that his devotion to his Hindu faith reached new heights, and he was probably like at like his most devout faithful around this time, and that was very much influencing many of the songs that he was writing. Now initially George had intended to work once again with Phil Spector as the producer of this album. However, after a few early sessions, Phil Spector was gently let go of, because his behaviour was becoming increasingly erratic. But also I think as well George was perhaps wanting to move away from that kind of full-on Phil Spector wall of sound, and pare things down a little bit, kind of simplify things for this album. So he basically assembled a core band on this album who are featured there on the Inner Gatefold there. So it included some of the same players who had played on All Things Must Pass, including Gary White on keyboards and Klaus Voormann on bass. You also had Jim Keltner joining on drums, who had played at the Bangladesh concert, and a guy called Jim Horn, who fittingly supplied horns and flutes on the album, as well as I think there's 3 tracks where you have Ringo guest appearing. Now notably on this album, unlike All Things Must Pass, where many of the lead guitar parts were taken care of by Eric Clapton is nowhere near this album. So George plays all of the guitar on this album, and it is widely considered as some of his best guitar work. So in terms of commercial success, this was certainly a commercially successful album, particularly in America, where it went gold after 2 days on sale. Such was the anticipation following All Things Must Pass. It would top the US charts, displacing Wings' album Red Rose Speedway from the top spot, while in the UK it would get to number 2, which was notably higher than that latest Paul McCartney and Wings release, which only got to number 5. So George was still very much hugely successful as a solo artist, probably still even at this point arguably the most successful of the former Beatles. However, after this initial burst of success, the kind of commercial longevity that All Things Must Pass had enjoyed sort of eluded this album. A second planned single was cancelled, and Harrison carried out next to no promotion for the album, so it's definitely not sold anywhere near as many copies as All Things Must Pass did. The critical reception to it was also rather more mixed than his debut. While most US publications, in particular, felt that it was a worthy follow-up to All Things Must Pass, with Rolling Stone magazine calling it a pop classic and a profoundly seductive record, In the UK, opinion was a bit more mixed to negative, with the NME calling it a breathtakingly unoriginal album and lyrically turgid and repetitive. So yeah, quite harsh words there from the UK press like at the time. But anyway, I wanted to show you my vinyl copy of it here, which is an original UK pressing of it. It's the only copy I do have of the album. And like I said, I know it has been recently reissued with an excellent remix. And like it was like that remix is now my go-to way like of listening to the album. Certainly like on my streaming services. But I've just like not got around to buying like the vinyl like off it yet, which I might do one day because I think it sounds absolutely great. But this is the original UK pressing, which features a photo of George's hand and some Hindu symbology like on it there. As I said, I've already shown the gatefolds, but you get this kind of Last Supper-esque sort of picture there, like of George and the players in the band, or most of the players, and I think this is Gary Wright like on like the end, whose head they have just kind of slightly poorly superimposed like on like the photo there, but it's still like a really good photo. This side is just the kind of credits and track listing. On the back of the album, there's not too much of note except for this little bit of text here, which is for the Jim Keltner fan club, which is a bit of a kind of piss take of the Paul McCartney album Red Rose Speedway, which featured the Wings fan club text like out like the bottom. And there was only about 3 weeks sort of between like these two albums like coming out, so yeah, very much like this must have been an era where, you know, like album production could just happen very, very quickly. I think nowadays artwork like this would be finalized months before like a release. But anyway, so yeah, I've already showed the gatefold. The inside though, you get a plain sort of brown inner with very nice labels like on like the record though, I have to say. Really nice. Like so one side is the kind of like this like limousine, and then the other side is this lovely like Hindu like sort of symbols there. And similarly on the inner on this kind of like inner insert here, you get more light. You get like a bigger version like off like that picture there, really vibrant, colourful picture. Another kind of Hindu symbol there, and all of the lyrics contained on the album. So it is a really nicely packaged record, this here. So anyway, I want you to go over each of the album's tracks in detail. I'll score each song out of 10 and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Trying to touch and reach you with. Okay, the first song up is Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth. Now this is probably going to be my most controversial take like on like this album, like when it comes to like, the song by song review, because I'm only giving this like an 8 out of 10. I think most people will probably give this a 9, like, or like even like a 10 out of 10. I think it's a good song though. I think it is a nice easy song to kick off the album. Lyrically very much kind of sets the scene for the whole album, a song sort of directed like to God, like with a plea to sort of like help me cope with this heavy load he sings on it. And yeah, certainly most people think of this like as a George Harrison classic. But for me, it's never been a huge favourite of mine. I just think I think there's a few things that bug me like with like this song. I think his vocals sound a little bit weak on this one for me. They sound a little bit croaky and almost kind of foreshadow his kind of dark horse voice. I think the rest of the vocals like on this album like are fine, but just this song, I think he just sounds a little bit weak vocally like on it. Like for me, like I've like heard no one else kind of like pick that out before, so maybe it is just me. And then also the actual content like of the song itself, there's not a whole lot of song here. Like there's the chorus, which is really good, like it's a good chorus, and then there's one verse, and then not a whole lot else happens really like with like the song, and there's a lot of space between like the lyrics, like in like the verse. It kind of just sort of feels like it like drags on like a little bit. So I'm maybe being a bit harsh here, but on the plus side though, you get some excellent slide guitar work on it. I think it's kind of like an overdubbed sort of like two-part slide guitar solo, which just beautifully like intertwines like with like each other. And the chorus itself is very good, very catchy, and you can understand like why this was a hit. So this was Harrison's second US #1 post-Beatles single, where it pushed the Wings song My Love off the top spot, while in the UK slightly less successful in the UK, but still a top 10 hit though, reaching number 8 on the charts. Okay, Okay, and then the next song up on the album is Sumi, Suyu Blues, which is a slightly, which again is not a favourite track of mine personally. It's a more kind of slightly hard-hitting song, this one here, slightly kind of harsher, not quite dirty sound, but it's definitely got more of a kind of swagger to it. Again, some good slide guitar work on it, but lyrically this one very much takes its inspiration from the disillusion like the Beatles, and so like the various kind of court actions which are going on in the early 70s. So there's some kind of like witty lyrics on it, like swing your partners, all get screwed, bring your lawyer and I'll bring mine, get together and we could have a bad time, he sings on it. So I think like initially written very much sort of like a dig at like McCartney, who was suing like Lennon, Harrison and Starr, but by the time they came to recording this song like in January of 1973, you could argue that it was perhaps maybe more aimed at like Alan Klein, like who like George, Lennon and Ringo like had all sort of like cut ties with like by that point. It is one of the only kind of non-spiritual tracks on the album, and I think it kind of stands out like a bit of like a sore thumb like because of that. I just don't think much of the song with its slightly plodding tempo and this overly fussy drum part like by Jim Keltner. It's just not really a favourite track of mine. Next up is The Light That Has Lighted the World. Now, this one is a really good, grand, stately ballad. I love the sentiment, like, off, like, this song. Like, the opening line, like, I've heard how some people have said that I've changed, that I'm not what I was, and how it's really a shame. It's just about, Harrison's struggles, with fame, basically, and kind of struggling to move on from the Beatles to forge his own, like, identity, like, as, like, a solo artist kind of thing, and how people can be very receptive and very sort of like resistant to change. Now this song was originally written with Cilla Black like in mind, with her kind of situation of kind of becoming famous and sort of like from a kind of small town like in like Liverpool, a working class sort of background, to becoming like sort of like a at least like in Britain a sort of nationally famous star. Was written like with her like in mind, has also been like relevant, but I think the lyrics sort of as they developed became a lot more personal to George, and he decided to keep the track for himself. I mean, it's certainly not the most exciting track in the world, but it is a very stately song. Some great piano from Nicky Hopkins on it, and again some excellent slide guitar work from George. So no, a really nice track there, The Light That Has Lighted the World. Next up is Don't Let Me Wait Too Long. Now, this is definitely the most upbeat and kind of poppy, accessible song on the album. Just got a great kind of shiny kind of quality to it. Very kind of, great jangly sort of 12-string guitars over it. These big kind of timpani kind of drums on it. It's very good kind of, I think what George was going for on here was a kind of impression or like approximation of the kind of Phil Spector sort of sound. And he really achieves that well on this song. Now, lyrically, it kind of comes across on, I guess, two levels. Perhaps as a kind of simple, direct love song about a woman who's come into his life and knows how to dry up all of those tears that I've cried, he sings in it. But considering that his relationship with his wife, Pattie Boyd, at this point was very much, pretty much over by this point, and he'd also not yet met his future wife, Olivia Harrison, this song is more likely to be written about God, another spiritual being. Now, this is the track that was originally earmarked as the second single for the album. Now I've been doing my research with this review, and I've not been able to find a reason why this single was cancelled. It was, I think it was mixed for a single, assigned a catalogue number, but for some reason it never came out. And it is a real favourite on the album. It certainly would have been a hit, I think, had it come out. It is just a shame that it didn't, because it is a really, really great George Harrison song. Okay, the next song up on the album is called Who Can See It. Now, this one is a track about George's disenchantment with his kind of situation, in the Beatles essentially kind of playing sort of second fiddle to Lennon McCartney. He sings on it I can see clearly now. through those past years when I played Towing the Line, I only ask that what I feel should not be denied me now, he sings it. So it's a deeply personal track, but with a very kind of grand kind of sort of like feel to like the song. He's really using the full range of his voice. Reminds me quite a lot of like Roy Orbison like sort of feel to it, as well as the string arrangement is a lot more kind of George Martin-esque than like Phil Spector, and even like the guitar tone, which is played through like a Leslie speaker, sort of like harks back to the kind of guitar sound he was using on the Beatles' Abbey Road. It's got some great vocals on it, like as I said, he's really using like the full range of his voice, and that line that line he reaches like at like the end of the chorus, that "my life belongs to me," is just absolutely gorgeous, and a surprising earworm like on like this album. Really sticks in like your memory, like that line. So yeah, who can see a really great song, a 9 out of 10. Okay, and then side one closes off with the title track, Living in the Material World. Now this one is a more kind of urgent, kind of upbeat rocker with lyrics which kind of talk about the kind of conflict of being a sort of part of the material world, having lots of possessions and friends and like all that, and sort of striving for a kind of striving for like a more spiritual path. So Harrison again directly references like his time like with the Beatles, like on this song. He sings like, met them all here in the material world, John and Paul here in the material world, though we started out quite poor, we got Richie on a tour, he sings. So a nice wee pun there, and it's just a great song, I think, in terms of its contrast between these more rockier upbeat sections and then these kind of slower like Indian passages like on like the middle eighth, which really gives the song real interest. It comes around twice, and I think both times it's just a real kind of breath of fresh air like on like the track. Now early takes of this song, which are available on the recently issued deluxe box set, show that the band actually continued playing through like these sort of like slower middle sections, which I think is far less effective. And I'm so glad that they apparently like this song took ages to record and overdub and get right, and I'm so glad they put the effort in with it, because it really is like a sublime piece of music, like for like the most part. The reason why I'm not giving it like the 10 out of 10 though is because I just think it does drag on a little bit, like kind of like particularly towards like the end. You've got a kind of a very long saxophone solo on it, which I just think is a bit too self-indulgent, and then a kind of big band kind of sort of ending. I just think if they'd maybe kind of not quite gone on as long, this song possibly would have been getting like a 10 out of 10. Okay, the next song up, which opens up side 2, is called The Lord Loves the One That Loves the Lord. Now, yeah, this is, I mean, certainly the title at least, probably the most spiritual, almost kind of, I guess you could sort of say preachy kind of song like on the album, and it's possibly is my least favourite, like I would say. It kind of kicks off with the chorus, which is an okay chorus, but it feels very repetitive. It's got a very same kind of structure to it, which goes round and round like a few times, like on like the track, quite gospel kind of like influence like on it. But I just feel that by the second or third time it comes round, you kind of have like grown tired of it. I mean, the verse is good musically, with some like good lyrics in some places around like we all move around with objectives in mind to become rich or famous with our reputation signed, he sings on it. But then there's other lines which are a bit more clunky. That line about all the world's leaders are acting like big girls is just a bit clunky and is certainly not aged like too well. I feel that as well musically, perhaps it's a song which would have fitted on some of George's sort of early 80s albums, like thinking like Gone Troppo and Somewhere in England, which is really not meant like as a compliment, because those albums are really nothing spectacular and feels more like a kind of jokey song, like in like some ways, like it would fit in like with like those sort of albums. But it's yeah, like it's okay. I probably wouldn't skip it, but I would certainly never seek it out with the album. Okay, the next song up is called Be Here Now. Now, this is a very simple song, on the surface at least, but a very beautiful track, though, with some great lyrics about just living in the moment, and, like a great middle line about why try to live a life that isn't real. A mind that wants to wander round a corner is an unwise mind, he sings on it. And that refrain of, like, it's not what it was before is just so beautiful. And again, the way that George sings it is just so, it feels so personal and so intimate, like, on it. Again, it could perhaps be another kind of comment on people who are yearning for Beatles reunions and sort of like living like in like nostalgia kind of thing, like that it's not what it was before line, and like about like Harrison's like identity struggle sort of like following that. It's a beautiful arrangement on it. It's one of the first and only times like in like a solo career that Harrison returned to a kind of Indian kind of like instrument sort of like sounds. So it's used like a sitar drone like on like this one here, which gives it a very transcendental and kind of meditative quality to it. It's an understated song, and I would say rather perfect. A really beautiful track there. 10 out of 10 for me. And I saw you. Okay, the next song up on the album is Try Some Buy Some. Now, this one, following Be Here Now, really feels quite jarring, and it's not a great bit of, and like it's really not a great bit of album sequencing there. It just feels like a real jolt, and you kind of like you're in like this very meditative headspace, and then suddenly this song kind of kicks in, and it's got like this is the one song on the album which was co-produced with Phil Spector, because it originally dates back to 1971, where George and Phil Spector and like some rest of like the musicians recorded this for Ronnie Spector to sing, and she released it like as a comeback single. It absolutely flopped, so Harrison decided to record his own version like of it, but essentially he just used the exact same backing track and put his vocal on it, didn't change the key, he just left it like as it was. And like I think like in retrospect, like he like admitted like himself that he probably should have tried to lower the key to kind of fit his voice like a bit better, because it does sound a little bit strainy like on this song like in places. Again, this is a kind of another kind of love song, devotional song, sort of like addressed like to God, like so he sings like, not a thing did I have, not a thing did I see, till I called on your love and your love came to me. And for me, I just think the track is okay. I just find it a little bit plodding, and the sound of like the backing arrangement doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the album, just doesn't quite work like on the album for me personally. So yeah, Try Some Buy Some would get a 6 out of 10. Okay, the penultimate track on the album is The Day the World Gets Round. Now, this is possibly my favourite on the album. I think it is certainly the most underrated song on the album, and probably one of the most underrated like of George's career, like I would say. Lyrically, it was inspired by the Bangladesh concerts that George organised. Firstly, the need itself to have the concerts for like a rock star to sort of be like organising these sort of concerts to raise funds for like the humanitarian crisis like in Bangladesh at the time, but also the difficulties in sort of getting the funds out to the people, getting various holdups with sort of different taxes and governments like involved like and such so he talks about like on like the song sort of like the destructive kind, and sort of like working from day to day to not live like them, like he sings like on it. The song itself builds up really, really, really well. You've got a fantastic like orchestration like on it, which is done by a guy called John Barham. His arrangement is just absolutely stunning like on this one, and for me, George's best vocal like on this album too, possibly even like off like his post-Beatles career. And I love the arrangement, the way it kind of builds up, then suddenly drops out like in like the middle for like the title line, which really sticks in like your head. Like again, like it's a real surprise earworm and a real moment of magic like on the album. And again, just that kind of like the middle section of it is just so strong. Like his vocal is great, the arrangement is just so powerful. It only comes around the once, and I'm quite glad it does, because it really leaves you wanting more. This song, it's a short song, it's less than 3 minutes, but just so much happens in those 3 minutes, and yeah, it is a real magical song there for me. So yeah, The Day the World Gets Round would get a 10 out of 10. A great song. That is all I'm waiting for. Okay, and then the album closes with the track And That Is All. Now, this is a slower ballad to finish off the album, and it's an okay song for me. It's got some good lyrics. The standout one is about, silence. Silence often says so much more than trying to say what has been said before, I think is a good lyric. But personally, it just feels a little bit quite like an understated closer. I do think like The Day the World Gets Round would have worked better like as like the album closer, though. This one just feels maybe a little bit forgettable. It's not bad like or anything, but it is maybe just a little bit like on the forgettable side. Okay, so overall, this album would score 81%. So I think this is one of George Harrison's most personal, most affecting albums. Now, while I don't personally believe in the kind of like the religious sort of viewpoint like of the album, like I'm not spiritual like myself, many of the songs and the messages like of the songs are universal enough to have a kind of like a wide appeal, and you can kind of like understand and sort of feel like what George is kind of singing like on like this on like this album. I think the fact he also plays all of the guitars on here also increases that kind of personal sort of feel and like connection to it, and the kind of stripped back production really works wonders like on it like as well. Now, I mean, it's not a perfect album. There are a couple of slightly dud tracks, the likes of Sumi, Suyu Blues, The Lord Loves the One, and Try Some Buy Some are definitely weaker tracks, but there are some absolute hidden gems on this album which casual fans wouldn't be familiar with, such as like Who Can See It and The Day the World Gets Round are just absolutely like exquisite songs. I'm really glad that I did decide to revisit this album because it's one that I just kind of like, it kind of slipped through the cracks for me like a little bit. And yeah, it really is a great album here by George. So yeah, that has been my review of George Harrison's Living in the Material World album. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed and would be interested to know what you think of this album down below in the comments. And yep, I'll see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye. Trying to say